Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about reluctancy. This was a big one because I think most of us, our default is being reluctant to draw that line in the sand and start on a new journey. You know, we're reluctant because we're afraid. That's the underlying energy, is fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of missing out. FOMO. We're gonna miss out on this party or that event or whatever it is. We're afraid that we're gonna miss out on something before embarking on a journey. If I knew now what I knew then, holy crap, was I wrong. I thought, if I stop drinking, then I'm gonna miss out on something. Oh my gosh, I had no idea what was just beyond, the veil, I call it, because once we remove that veil and we have a new pair of goggles on, we're able to see all the crap we've been missing out on in life, on the other side. And so anyway, so I just want to go over just a few things that I was afraid of personally before going on this journey. And so just in case, you might be having some of the same fears. I was also afraid of judgment. I was afraid of people judging me. And the irony there is that part of the reason I felt depressed all the time and I felt like there was a lot of resistance was I always felt misunderstood. I always felt like I couldn't speak my truth, or I couldn't say what I was really thinking, because my default is more philosophical, more creative, more out of the box, more unconventional. So I was afraid of people judging me just by being myself, being authentic, And so when we go through our own transformational journey, we're actually discovering who we really are so we can really be authentic. And so in that, we start to realize that, oh my gosh, I was people pleasing. I was afraid of people judging me. I was afraid of, I was being too self-critical. I was, just not embracing who I really am. And so that's why it's important. I always talk about boundaries, when we embark on a new journey, when we embark on a journey of self-discovery, it's really important to set these strong boundaries at first, because we really want to find our own personal truths. We want to start to learn to stand in our power, So anyway, back to fear. Fear's number one. That's why we're reluctant to embark on a journey. We're afraid of missing out. We're afraid of criticism. We're afraid, and this is a lot of it's subconscious. It's not like you're consciously thinking, I'm afraid. It's not. It's just an underlying fear. We're afraid of failing. We're afraid of what people might think. We're afraid of setting boundaries. We don't want to have to set boundaries with our own parents or with our significant other or with our close friends, because we're afraid of that judgment, or we're afraid of certain things. But I want to just, if that is something that's stopping you, I want to reassure you that it's all freaking worth it. It's so worth it. You start to feel that just after a few days of drawing that line in the sand and being like, no, I'm gonna stand in my truth. I'm gonna stand in my power. I'm gonna do what's right for me, because I want to be my most optimal self, and I'm not letting anything get in my flipping way this time. So I'm just here to encourage you to start. Just start. So however to start. And my recommendation there is start by letting things go that don't serve you anymore. Write down all the things that this isn't probably good for me. This isn't probably good for me anymore. This bothers me. This person's annoying. Whatever it is, just write it down, and like, this doesn't serve me anymore. It's not doing me any good. It could be alcohol, it could be bad food, it could be a job you're at that you don't like. Try to figure out an exit strategy. Not to get too far into that right now, but since it's on my mind, we might be really unhappy with our work. Just know that after the transformation, after you go through a transformation, your exit strategy will just come to you, and so you're never truly stuck in anything. You're never stuck in any situation, any living situation, any financial situation, any situation. It's just a matter of time and new perspective. That's it. So I'm here to just encourage you to embark on a journey so that you can widen your perspective, so that you can have a fresh look at it and like, oh my gosh, I see how I can get myself out of this pickle. And so one of the second thing was this is big. So first was fear. Second is I was afraid well, I guess it's still fear. I was afraid of, how do I put this? Not that I was afraid of spirituality, but my ego. So ego's a big thing. My ego was like, oh, that's so soft, or I don't know if I identify, even though I was always spiritually curious and I always considered myself more spiritual than religious, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I always thought like there was this one thing our ego does is it thinks in extremes. Like you're either just normal or you're woo woo, or you're normal or you're a hippie, or you're normal or you're out there, or you're normal or you're new age, or you're normal or you're religious. It's like, no, you can adopt spiritual practices and spiritual principles without looking completely like a hippie, So that was one of my fears. Was I was afraid, like, if I embraced spirituality, that I would look weird, when really that's me being inauthentic. I was interested. I did want to feel more fulfilled. I did want answers. I did want absolute truths. I did want to feel liberated and free. And that's exactly what spirituality does for you, is it liberates you from all these constructs that don't serve you anymore. And it's non-institutional. So there's no one judging you. There is no judgment. The only one that's judging is yourself. So God doesn't judge in real life. That's only in certain belief systems. God does not judge. There's only I'll get into that in a different lesson, but anyway, I just want to talk about reluctancy today. So I was reluctant to start on my journey because, again, I was afraid of like what it might develop into, and I might look weird, but no, now I'm like, I'm embracing my weirdness. I flip and love it because it makes me feel free. It makes me feel authentic. It makes me feel like I can be my creative out there self, and let's celebrate that, and before it, so the only thing that's really stopping, the only thing that stopped me was ego. And so we'll learn more about ego. The spiritual lens of ego is a lot more informative than what I learned in psychology and mainstream. When we think of ego, we think of like big ego, like, it's not about that. It's not vanity. It's not about just that. That's just one aspect of it. Ego is very interesting to find out about, because ego is usually what stops us from being our authentic self. And so it's about finding that balance. We need our ego, but it's about, knowing when to tell it to shut up. Be quiet. I want to be myself. So, and follow my heart and follow what I truly desire, not what's safe all the time. So, reluctancy, the big cause of reluctancy is our ego, because our ego is what houses fear. Our ego is what houses judgment. Our ego is what is afraid of what we might look like, to other people. So anyway, that's a big part of it. And then the other thing is cost, like and time, commitment. Time is commitment. So when I thought about before, like, like juices and eating healthy or getting a gym membership, that's all so expensive, and I don't want to commit my time to it. And this is all subconscious. It's not like I'm actually thinking that and speaking that, out, but let's usually why we're reluctant is like, oh, that costs, so much. But when we really, really sit down and contemplate that, it's actually way, way, way more expensive in so many different ways to mistreat our body, to do the toxic thing, like go to the bars all the time, or go to, I'm not saying like, don't go out with your friends, but when it's time to embark on a time to a transformation or carving out, weeks or months to really, really, figure out who we are. Don't let that be a priority. It used to be a priority and I'm an introvert, but I would still make that a priority, even going kind of against my intuition. That's following the herd. It really is. That's not having boundaries. It's like every time you're invited to something, just go. It's like, no, you have to say no sometimes and carve out that time for yourself. So it's actually way, way, way more costly when we do everything, just going with everything, saying yes to everything, making our appearances. Say no for a while and watch how much money you save. You actually save a lot of money by choosing to eat healthy and do healthy things. And instead of Netflix, listen to a podcast or pick up a book. Instead of going to the bar, dedicate time to go for a long walk or a hike or a bike ride or freaking go roller skating, whatever. When we start to remove that and replace it with things, we start to, first of all, those are huge wins. It's difficult just at first, and then it actually becomes more and more and more rewarding because we feel good. That's the difference between like a superficial dopamine release and like a healthy dopamine release. It's like, we're actually like earning this high, like, oh my gosh, it felt so good to go roller skating, like the wind in my hair and, using different muscles I haven't used in a while, like, wow, talk about a real win. And then that dopamine release is what our soul actually craves. Our soul doesn't crave that little temporary, energy boost we get at the bar and get that false sense of confidence. That's not real confidence. That's our ego thinking it is, and it's not. It's not real. When we actually challenge ourselves to these things, we get a real dopamine release, and that's how you get naturally high. That's how you become high on life, is pushing yourself a little bit and getting that dopamine release. Because it's amazing, right? So that's those are just a couple of things that I felt were stopping me before. So and so there was one teacher, I looked it up. I don't remember how I looked it up, but I was like, do I have to like look spiritual? Like I don't want to look spiritual. And that of course was my ego, but like it's only because our ego thinks of things in extreme. Like, oh, if you're not a drinker, then you're sober. That's not true. You're just choosing not to drink all the time. Or if you're spiritual, then you must be religious. That's again not true at all. If you're, so everything, there's gray areas. If you don't believe in this, then you must believe that. So anyway, I hope this inspired someone who might be having, any of these things that I went through. I was just like, there's a little bit of that embarrassment or shame or whatever. It's like, no, you're actually just developing into your authentic self, who you are. And spirituality is everywhere. It's everywhere. It's flowers are spiritual, birds are spiritual, orgasms are spiritual, like music is spiritual. Everything is spiritual, everything. And so once we realize that, then it's like, oh, I've been spiritual my whole life. I just wasn't allowing and fully embracing the magic part of it. And the more we learn about different spiritual sciences, then we realize this is magic. There's been magic all around me my entire life, but I wasn't tapping into it. Because my ego was usually in the way, or certain belief systems were in the way, and I wasn't quite understanding who I was and why I'm here on earth and what the universe has been trying to communicate to me this whole time. We just had blinders on. And so the more we expand our consciousness, we realize, oh my gosh, I've just been denying myself this whole time because I was playing it safe. So I'm here to challenge you to don't play it safe anymore. Be your authentic self, figure it out. And it's fun figuring it out. The more we, just challenge ourselves to something different and get out of our comfort zone and try something new that's spiritual and so woo-woo and new agey. The more we kind of dabble, the more it's like, oh, this is fun. I like it. So if you need a permission slip, here it is. Go do it. Go hug a tree. Anyway, bye.